Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Books and Mortar with me, your host Razia, where we talk about the books that build us. So today's episode is about a book by a Nigerian author called Only Big Bumbum Matters Tomorrow by Damilare Kuku. So this book has gotten a lot of traction on Bookstagram. Yeah, Bookstagram. A few months ago, and I thought I'd give it a read. Honestly, it's mostly because of the awesome title, right? Only Big Bumbum Matters Tomorrow. So let me read you the synopsis on the back of the book. You want to act like you don't know that everybody, they buy Bumbum now? Freshly out of Obafemi Awolowo University, 20-year-old Temi has a clear plan for her. She is going to surgically enlarge her backside like all the other Nigerian women, move from Ile-Ife to Lagos, and meet a man who will love her senseless. When she finally finds the courage to tell her mother, older sister, and aunties, her announcement causes an uproar. Nigerian families can really be an obstacle in a girl's journey to physical perfection. But as each of the other women try to cure Temi of what seems like temporary insanity, they begin to spill long-buried secrets, including the truth of Temi's older sister's mysterious disappearance 5 years earlier. In the end, it seems like Temi might be the sanest of them all. In Only Big Bumbum Matters Tomorrow, Damilare Kuku brings her signature humor, boldness, and compassion to each member of this lovable but exasperating family, whose lives reveal the ways in which a woman's physical appearance can dictate her life and relationships, and show just how sharp the double-edged sword of beauty can be. So it's quite weighty topics, right? But presented in a very light-hearted manner. So the story starts with young Temi announcing to her family soon after her father's death that she wants to have a Brazilian butt lift. In other words, she wants to surgically enlarge her backside because she believes that it will make her attractive and help her find a man who will, as she puts it, love her senseless. And she believes that she will find this man in Lagos. So this is a very important book about body image and how having a particular body shape can actually impact the way your life goes. I mean, it sounds silly, doesn't it? But it's not untrue. So this is Temi, right? From her perspective. So your bum has always been flat. You stared as usual, hoping that some fat had miraculously found its way into it. In your midnight blue lace dress, you looked at your slender frame in the full-length mirror that stood next to your bed. You lifted one hand to clutch both breasts and touch the small of your back with the other. If only your ass was bigger, your tiny waist would have been a magnet for compliments. You dropped both hands and sighed. This was your morning ritual for yourself, for your sanity, for your sense of somebodyness. So it's interesting how different cultures prize different parts of a woman's body and then different sizes of that particular body part as well. But it's hugely concerning that this is even a thing because women and our bodies weren't created as prizes or as trophies. Then the having or not having that particular, body trait becomes our obsession because we end up believing that that's what we need to have to be considered beautiful and then subsequently for people to love us. And I think for us to love ourselves as well, and that's actually the most concerning part. So anyway, this announcement of Temi causes quite the uproar amongst the women in her family, and they can't understand why she would want to firstly have a larger backside, and secondly, why she would want to actually risk her life for it. Because the surgery can be life-threatening, right? So Temi has been seeing influencers on TikTok who have had the procedure done, and it seems as though, or it appears as though, since they've done it, their lives have become just perfect. So she, of course, thinks that the same is going to happen for her. But the thing is that Temi actually seems to be a pretty girl just as it is. She's constantly described as beautiful by her sister and others, but she's also gotten endless critique about her body shape from boys and men who prize large bums from the time she was a teenager. And, I cannot handle a grown man commenting on a 14-year-old's body. She says that men would touch her without her consent and ask where her yansh is. So that's a Nigerian slang word for backside. I think it's a really cool word, actually. And they would yell at her that they would make her pregnant so that her bum would grow large. And all sorts of horrific things, hey? And course, this would like mortify her, right? And all of this made her so conscious of her body, particularly the size of her backside, that she tried all sorts of things to enlarge her rear end, but nothing worked. And the disappointment would actually drive her to tears. It sounds extreme, but again, given the way the men in the street and the boys at school spoke to her and insulted her, I can understand why it would trouble her so much, because it affected her daily life. And of course, it then affected her mental health, right? So even though she was admitted eventually to hospital for drinking this mixture of milk and malt to enlarge her bum, the body image issue was actually just brushed aside by the doctor as a childish idea that she would eventually grow out of. So he was aware that it was a body image issue, but he just didn't do anything about it. She also never confided in anyone, so it was never actually addressed. So the announcement came as quite a shock to the family, and they initially thought that she was joking, but when they realized that she wasn't, they were like really horrified, right? So these are some of their reactions. Mommy turned to face you. Temi, do you want to kill me? You want me to join your father so soon? Jesus, why our family? Auntie Jumai clapped her hands and screamed. Temi wants me to join her father. She wants to kill me. Your mother leaned on the right arm of your father's favorite chair. Big Mommy yanked off her head tie and flung it across the room, then ran to pick it up immediately. She circled the sofa screaming, La ilaha illallah, they've got Temi, they've got her. Then the cherry on top, Temi tells them that she wanted to ask them to contribute to the cost of the surgery, especially the post-op recovery, but like I really think that she was reaching here. Hey? So these are the women in Temi's family. Her mother, Hassana, her mother's sister, Auntie Jumai, and then her father's sister, Big Mommy. Her older sister, Ladun, was there as well, but she didn't actually have a verbal reaction to Temi's announcement. And while her family is having their reaction, in the back of Temi's head is the question of why Ladun was allowed to leave the house at age 20 and no one stopped her. Why didn't they try to talk her out of that decision the way her mother is trying to talk her out of hers? Her sister left and she moved to Lagos under mysterious circumstances 5 years ago. And their father's funeral is actually now the first time that she's come home. So as a side note, right, I hated that men in this book felt that they were free to comment on women's bodies the way they did. It was as though the only reason that women exist is to be pleasing for them to look at. And it was infuriating, like a lot in this book was infuriating. I'm tired of the never-ending sexist narrative in literary fiction. And I hate it even more because I know that it's a reflection of our society, that women still pay the price for bad behavior of men. And that men are still given so many more freedoms than women, yet they are the ones who perpetrate so many ills. I'm not saying that women are innocent. We judge each other harshly and we are really guilty of not supporting each other. Why are we still doing so badly after decades of the feminist fight? And I would read parts of this book and I would just grit my teeth and I'd be like, this is so annoying. this man, like I can't deal. Okay, so anyway, Temi's announcement then starts each woman's reflection of her own life. And their lives were tragic, like tragic. I would say, in my opinion, actually, that Temi's mother, Hassana, had the most tragic time of things. And Temi actually has had the least trauma in her life, aside from the bullying. So there are threads from Auntie Jumai, Hassana, Ladun, and Temi. Big Mommy has her own small section. But for this review, I'm only going to focus on Hassana and her daughters. So Hassana is Temi and Ladun's mother, and she was married to a man named Tito, a philosophy professor, who I honestly felt was the loveliest person in this book. He's so kind and he was so understanding. He treated his wife and daughters and everyone else with so much respect. And he was actually laughed at by other women in society for what they saw as a mild and timid character, because he didn't leer at women and he didn't cheat on his wife. It's like a norm to cheat on your wife. Like your wife knows that you're going to take a mistress, like at least one. So he became Hassana's life really when they met, and he would stand up for her and he would prioritize her over everyone else, even his sister. So Hassana had her own share of body issues. So even though she says that she can't understand where Temi's ideas come from, even she had her own issues. So she says that Temi must know that she's not the only woman who was born with a body she didn't love. She felt that her breasts were saggy, and when her sister-in-law commented on this after she had given birth, it really upset her. But Hassana says this, which I think is so important and is like pretty much the crux of the book, even though it was said very early on. So she says this, but we must all be stronger than the words people throw at us. Otherwise, we never move forward. And it's such a simple sentiment, right? But it's so difficult to actually practice it sometimes. She was also going through some serious issues, though, with Ladun at the time of Temi's announcement. So this is what she says. Children can be wicked. They wait until they are older before showing you pepper for everything you did wrong in their childhood. Now I am alone because my best friend has left me. My 2 children would rather go into a city that is likely to swallow them than stay here with me. Why won't children learn? I have seen life. I've been to places that they couldn't imagine. So as a mother myself, I can understand where she's coming from. It's like you've lived life and you've made all of the mistakes so that you can protect your children from making those same mistakes, right? But they're not going to listen to you. So her husband Tito was very different in this respect. He kept telling her that the children are their own people and they must be allowed to live their lives on their own terms, make their own decisions and be independent human beings. And I suppose as a parent, it is difficult to watch your child make a mistake, especially one that might have, very severe consequences, but sometimes it's the best way to learn. So Hasana talks about her childhood a little bit as well. And interestingly, this is what she had to say, right? Growing up, I believed it was my duty to be beautiful, if only as the fulfillment of my name. In fact, on days when people didn't remark on my beauty and my body, I went home to bathe and dress again, then rub some of Mama's shea butter on my skin. When I stepped out, I would walk through the usual places where they sang my praises and wait, pretending to be busy with a novel. Hasana, you are looking beautiful this evening. Hasana, your skin is magic. Please share your secrets. Hasana, you are special. It is only a big man that can marry you. It was only then that my day would start. I received the validation I needed from my admirers. And Temi is the same, right? And it's so bad that we care so much about what other people think of us that we actually can't even move forward with our lives or our day if we don't receive a compliment. And it's terrible to be so insecure and to only believe that I'm beautiful if somebody else says that I am, and to only think that I'm smart because someone else tells me that I am. And I think to an extent it's something that we're all guilty of. And I used to laugh at the idea of self-affirmations, but growing older and having a child has actually made me understand how important they actually are. That you're able to say these things to yourself enough times that in the end your voice is the only one that matters. So Hasana also mentions that she was blessed in the backside area and she was considered quite beautiful and she would get a lot of attention from men. But it wasn't always good attention, nor was it always wanted attention. So there was a man named Atiku in her life who was very taken with her. And at the time she had a boyfriend named Israel and they were engaged. But honestly, in this book, I feel like every man just says, I want to marry you and make you my wife. It happens like a lot. So anyway, Atiku pursues Hasana and he even gets her mother to like him because he comes from a wealthy family. So he invites her to a dinner at his house one evening, and despite her protests, he keeps insisting and she relents. I hate that, by the way, also. If a woman says no, you should just say, okay, cool, and move on. That's it. Don't push or insist, because a lot of women are people pleasers and eventually we will give in and put ourselves in situations that make us very uncomfortable. So if a woman says no the first time, don't ask a second time. Anyway, so Hasana goes and the unspeakable happens, but I'm going to speak it like if you can't already guess what happened. So this douche head, Atiku, forces himself on her and he rapes her. So she tells Israel what happened and he breaks up with her, saying that she cheated on him. So again, here you go. Women paying the price for the bad behavior of men. And Hasana then left Lagos for a while and she never actually told anyone what happened to her. And this is why Lagos holds so much pain for her and it hurts her when her daughters say that that's where they want to be. But then she met Tito, also in Lagos, by the way. And then they moved to where they currently live, which is a much smaller town. So she says, Tito took care of me. During the early days of our marriage, he helped me with my dyslexia. We read books together, saying the words aloud slowly. Soon I was able to write and read properly on my own. He loved me openly and without apology. He let the world know I was his wife. So he obviously made her feel like really, really special. So here's the thing, right? I could call it a spoiler, but like I don't know if in these kinds of books there are actually like really spoilers, because it's like it's real life, you know what I mean? So I don't feel like it's a spoiler, you know, like who killed who or who's gonna take the throne or whatever it is. So the thing is that Hassana found out that she was pregnant by Atiku. She was with Tito at the time, and he told her that he will get married to her and he will raise the child as his own. And this child was Ladun. So Ladun and Tito were inseparable. She loved her father, I think, more than she did her mother. And Hassana admits that she was jealous of their relationship because she wished that she had a father like Tito. And Ladun had no idea that Tito wasn't her biological father. They did plan on telling her after she graduated college, but unfortunately she found out earlier, and it caused a huge rift between her and her mother, and this was the reason for her leaving home to go to Lagos. So Hassana never actually told Ladun that Atiku raped her, and that's how she fell pregnant. You could argue that it may have helped to bridge the rift between them, but I think that if I had been in that situation, I would worry that it might change my child's perception of themselves. And I would hate that. Like, I would rather live with the burden than put it on her shoulders. And so I don't know if that's why Hassana chose not to tell her, but that would have been my reason. Okay, so if we move on now to Ladun's story, right? So my father's death brought about the inevitable journey back home. A new wave of sadness blew over me. I was grieving the loss of my father, the loss of my mother's care, and my sister's love. It had been 5 years of finding my way without my family. 5 years of becoming. My father came to visit me in Lagos from time to time. However, I never saw my mother. I barely spoke to her or Temi. So Ladun feels even worse now because a couple of weeks before he passed away, her father had asked her to come home with her then boyfriend for him to meet the family. So she's been in Lagos for the last 5 years, right? And Tito had gone to visit her once a month, trying to convince her to speak to her mother and patch things up, but he was never successful. So going back a bit into Ladun's teenage years, right, she has this to say about her body. I always had a love-hate relationship with my body. Yes, I loved that it was healthy, but I hated that it developed too early, making me the center of unwanted attention. I couldn't quite understand why it has such an effect on men. They all wanted to touch me, sometimes doing so without my consent. What exactly was wrong with me that made men stare endlessly? Why couldn't I be as straight as a pencil, narrow and athletic? Please stop touching me, I wanted to scream. But it was not only strangers who touched me. It was also family, friends, schoolmates, familiar faces. And it's in that situation where it's actually harder even to say no, because now it's somebody that you know and you don't want to upset anyone, you don't want to offend anyone because you're going to get in trouble, right? So the first time it happened, a guy she knew kissed her without her consent. And then he tells her that he can't wait until she turns 18, right? She's 14 at the time, so that he can marry her. And in fact, he's going to go and tell his parents, like right now, to go and visit her parents that evening so that they can fix up the marriage. So, and she says that her mother always warned her never to be alone with a man, and now she understands why. So the second time, it was her teacher. The man was 34 years old, and he tried to force himself on her when she went to class to drop off some work. She was still 14 at the time. She's so traumatized by men trying to force themselves on her and trying to touch her without her consent that she starts wearing oversized clothing so that men can't see her body shape. So do you see what kind of effect this harassment has on the woman? And she wasn't the only girl that her teacher tried his luck with, which means that he just moved from one girl to another, right? But the impact that interaction had on Ladun will stay with her for the rest of her life. And it will affect the way she sees men and will potentially affect her future relationships as well. So there's something interesting about Billie Eilish also, the reason that she dresses the way she does. She says that she wears oversized clothing so that you cannot see the shape of her body and you're not able to sexualize her. And it's because of the way society sees women's bodies. It's terrible. So here's Ladun's relationship with her body and the consequences of the body that she has, the body that Temi is jealous of, and something that she's not actually responsible for. So Temi feels that if she has a body like Ladun, she would be happy because everyone would love her. But then Ladun wishes that she looked like Temi so that men would leave her alone. So, Ladun had two significant relationships in her life. The second one was with a man who turned out to be an armed robber. So that was pretty much doomed. And the first one was with a man named Mofe. So they wanted to get married, and she asked her parents to visit his parents to make it official. But her mother wasn't thrilled about this because, like customarily, it's the guy's parents who would go and visit the girl's parents. But anyway, Tito convinced Hassana to go because he said it's just circumstances, right? And to Hassana's horror, Mofe's father turns out to be none other than Israel. So of course you can imagine that Israel would never want his son to marry the daughter of the woman who had, like, in quotation marks, cheated on him. And I think that he also figured out that Ladun wasn't actually Tito's daughter, which made it worse. So it was obviously tragic for Hassana because she knew immediately what would happen. And Israel tells Mofe that he can't marry Ladun, and Mofe accepts it. And Ladun knew nothing about this, and he just started ghosting her, and eventually she saw on Facebook that he was married to someone else. And of course, it broke her heart, and this is how she found out about Hassana's tragedy, but like the Reader's Digest version, right? So she had called Mofe's mother to ask what happened, and all she heard was that Hassana had cheated on Israel, and that's why he didn't want Mofe to marry her. And the interaction is really heartbreaking because as the reader, you know what actually happened. And I think that because Ladun and Hassana had never been close, the sheer anger that came from Ladun at that point was more than it maybe would have been if their relationship was a bit better. So this is Hassana. The night Ladun found out about my history with Israel, she assailed me with many words. Why didn't you tell me why Mofe left me? You knew what happened and you let me walk around depressed all these months. If I hadn't called Mofe's mother, would you have even told me? Ladun's voice was laced with barely concealed anger. Ladun, I planned to tell you, just like I planned to tell you that the words refused to leave my lips. Plan to tell me what? What more are you hiding from me? Ladun, that man is your real father, I stuttered. You could have heard a pin drop in the silence. Which man? The man you cheated on Mofe's father with? I whispered, I didn't cheat. That is not the point. So the man is my real father? Yes, Ladun, Tito is not your biological father. We were going to tell you when... Mommy, how are you able to live with yourself? As she continued to scream, I wondered what else she thought I could have done as a mother. Did she think I was going to break her heart by sharing such news in her final year and risk her failing her exams? Did she think I was going to tell her when I found out that Mofe had gotten married shortly after? Why are children so naive? There's a popular Yoruba proverb that says, when an elder falls, he looks back, but when a child falls, he looks ahead. I had fallen and I had to reflect on my past so it shouldn't affect my children anymore. It sucks that we have to work on ourselves when we become parents so that you don't pass that trauma onto your child. It's like, just leave me with my baggage, I've earned it now. I've paid for the extra weight. And this is the night that Ladun left. And at a later point in the book, she says that she wasn't blind to her mother's hurt. She just didn't care. And I don't really know what to say about that. It's awful that a child cannot care about her mother's feelings, even when she can see that there's maybe something more going on. And Ladun could see it, but she just says, I didn't care. I was like, okay, all right. I know she was also going through a lot at the time, but I just felt that the words were so harsh. It's like I knew she was hurting, but I didn't care. The relationship was really so broken, hey, and I don't think it was ever really whole. Ladun was always Tito's child, while Temi favored Hassana. So Ladun says, as I looked back, maybe I hadn't responded wisely. But I was dealing with a heartbreak, news of my biological father, and the reality that my whole life was a lie. I knew I was hurting my parents. I just didn't know how to stop being angry. I don't think it was just her parents, though, that she was angry at. It was a lot of things. So trying to find a way to leave Edache, who was the armed robber, Ladun's next serious relationship after Mofe, her father's death kind of came in an opportune time because it gave her an excuse to leave Lagos and then leave him. So after Temi's announcement, she can't believe that Temi would want to go to Lagos, the place that had been so full of nightmares for little Ladun, just like it was for her mother. Full circle. So finally we go on to young Temi, right, who wants a Brazilian butt lift, a BBL. So she was padding her butt from the age of 10, right, the way girls pad their bras, right. And apparently it was her aunt Big Mummy who made her aware of her body at age 8 by asking her mother if she ever fed Temi because Temi was so thin. But she just figured that when she grew up, she would look like her mother and Ladun, but that didn't happen. When she was in grade 5, she liked a boy and he told her that he could never marry her because she had no yansh and she looked like a mopstick. Like you really want to laugh, but it hurt her so much. It really did. And she says it was at this point that she knew that there was something wrong with her body and the obsession with the bum began. She had some incidents at school where people commented on her body. So it goes like this. You heard snide comments from students as they trooped out of the hall after the assembly. Mobstick Temi. How is it that someone has stayed flat for 6 years? Her sister is a perfect figure 8. The embarrassment stayed with you even after graduation. To make the week even worse, the class yearbook came out. Whereas Abigail was almost everyone's crush, you were on the good friend/sister list. So these things, like, they really hit Temi's confidence, eh? And since almost all of the comments revolved around her backside, this was the thing that she chose to change. So her self-esteem was so low that even when a guy actually liked her, she wouldn't let herself believe that he was actually attracted to her. Eventually, she made some friends at school. Ikena, EK for short. I don't know why I say EK. It's because it's IK. It's an I, right? But I don't know, EK just sounds better. Anyway, she liked him because the first thing he said to her was a compliment about her brains and not an insult about her body. So they became friends. Then she had another friend named Abigail, but Abigail eventually moved on. But Ike went to college with her and her other friend Bobola. I struggle a little bit with the pronunciation of names here, so I know that I'm not right, but please forgive me and in my ignorance. So she called Bobola is Bobby. So they were inseparable, and I think that they made all of the difference in Temi's life. Eh? She was able to find peace with her friends, which was more than I think any other woman in her life could say. So she walked into the house the night that Ladun left after the fight, and she saw Ladun leaving without explaining anything, and her mother didn't tell her anything either. So Auntie Jumai was there, so she knew everything, but she didn't tell Temi either. She says that no one actually seemed to acknowledge Ladun's absence. When Ladun finally reached out to her after leaving, I think she didn't quite know how to react because Ladun eventually texted her after Tito told her, fine, if you don't want to talk to your mother, but at least speak to your sister. So Temi says, how did she expect you to summarize 2 years? Did she want you to tell her how you had heard your mother crying silently on many nights? Or how your father was a shadow of himself since his favorite child left? Or how you had to rely on Ike and Bobola so you wouldn't become an emotional wreck? The person on the other side of the line was Ladun, but you knew your sister was a different person. Still, you were grateful that she had made contact. That was enough for you. This was a very mature stance for her to take, I think, and it showed that Temi was actually a much more stable person than her sister, in spite of her body issues. She wasn't so quick to anger, and her emotions were just generally a little bit more stable. So Temi's life was actually going pretty well. And she had good friends. She was doing well at college. Ladun was in touch again. And as part of her research work, Temi decided that she was going to interview some women at college. And this is what these women had to say. Yes, the moment I changed my body, my life changed. My bum has paid my bills, and I already have a job waiting for me because the manager fell in love with my figure despite the fact that she's a woman. My bum is natural, Shah, but the moment I give birth, I am going under the knife. I wear a waist trainer to sleep and I wake up in it. I can't afford surgery yet, but I will do it soon. I wear fake hips and bum. Once it is time for me and my boyfriend to knack, I off light. Oh my word. So, and another one. Of course, I am saving for my labor market makeover. New breast, new butt, and eventually a new nose. I don't like the bridge of my nose. So you can see how commonplace the surgery actually is, and not just the Brazilian butt lift, but other surgical enhancements as well. So the desire to alter body shape and then the willingness to actually undergo surgery, which is very dramatic, eh? Temi finally graduates, and then her father asks her what she would like as a graduation gift. So this is what she says. This is a conversation between Temi and Tito, and I thought it was really lovely that she could speak to her father like this. So this is what she says. You looked at the floor. Daddy, I want to fix my bum. It makes me feel inadequate. Look at me. Why do you feel inadequate? I'm constantly embarrassed by my lack of a backside. I don't talk to you about it because it seems trivial to everyone else. You told him everything and what you saw when you looked at yourself in the mirror. He was quiet and you thought he didn't understand. But he did. When you looked up, his eyes were red. I'm sorry, Temi. I didn't know. I guess times have changed and people have forgotten how to be kind with their words. Sometimes they joke, but they do not know that it lands in a place of hurt. You fell into his arms and for the first time you broke down about everything. After you'd calmed down, he looked at you. You are such a beautiful girl, Damilare, and I am not saying it because you are my child. It is the truth. You and your sister took your mother's face, thankfully. Now, I can't say I fully understand this, but I hear you. You are waiting, Temi. You keep waiting for life instead of seizing it and going for it. If the surgery will give you more enthusiasm for life, which, my love, I know it may not because you are so beautiful and you are going to be perfect as you are in the eyes of the people who love you, then do it. My father paused to catch his breath. Please, Temi, stop waiting for Ladun, Bobola, or Akena to escort you through life. They will meet and walk with you at different phases, but ultimately you only have yourself. The man you marry may choose to walk the path with you forever, but even then you must put yourself first. People's opinion of you matters when it comes to character and how you present yourself, but the appraisal of your physical attributes is not your problem. You must think of the consequences and how they will not only affect you, but your loved ones too. No parent wants to bury their child. Please don't do this to your mother and me. I just want to be seen, Daddy. I want to matter. And for the most part, it seems like the world will only see me if I have a backside, you sniffled. It is in your head, Temi. I see you, and your mother sees you too. I know people have hurt you and you feel the pain. Feel it, then move on. If possible, forget the hurt. He looked at you as if contemplating his next word carefully. He said, So I will give you 1 million naira to add to your surgery fund, but you must promise me that you will tell your mother before you have the surgery. Daddy, you know she will fight me. You need her, so please tell her and make sure Ladun is there too. So what a lovely conversation between father and daughter. Even though he doesn't understand why she wants to do something, he can respect her reasons for wanting to do it. And he really sees his children as individuals and he tries his best not to judge them by his beliefs and his opinion on things. But I think he was being a little bit self-serving here, right? Because you can see, like, in some weird way, he figured that this announcement of Temi's would finally bring his family back together. But I liked what he said to her about not living her life. So, like, often I think that we feel, if I just lose some weight, then I can do this. Or if I just wait until my backside is a bit bigger, then I can do that. And we end up forfeiting our present in the hope of a future that might actually never materialize the way we hope it will. And there's also no guarantee that when that change happens, that you will be a happier person. But because he gave her a hearing and he accepted her decision, when her father passed away that night, Temi took the news very calmly. And after she tells her family what she wants to do, they get a prophet in to pray for her. And the family doctor comes to talk to her because they are determined to save her from the demons that have possessed her. So the lovely thing, though, is that Temi's news causes reconciliation between Hassana and Ladun. So Tito actually got his wish in the end, and the both of them finally find some peace. So all of this is going on in the house. Ladun is finally back, and Temi is annoyed that she still won't tell her why she left. She feels like no one tells her anything, and no one in the house actually talks about anything that really matters. But there's this lovely moment between her and Ladun. Your sister interrupted your thoughts. Temi, I need to ask you this. You lifted your chin slightly, indicating that you should go ahead. Are you fixing your butt to impress boys? Maybe. Most importantly, sis, this is what I want. You were as honest as you could possibly be. Okay, I can respect that. Ladun pulled you into a warm embrace. You let yourself melt into her hug. You didn't know what that moment fully meant, but you felt a weight lift from your shoulders. You saw a future in which you could make your own choices. You saw your family clapping approvingly. It meant everything to you. Then she woke up to the prophet sprinkling olive oil on her face and praying that the demons must leave her body and her mind. So after all the drama and everyone trying to talk her out of it, Temi finally has her say. So this is what she says to all the women sitting there now. So it's her mother, Auntie Jumai, Big Mummy, and Ladun. How can you ask me how I came to be this way? Everywhere I look, the perfect image for a woman is projected on TV, social media, and elsewhere. Mommy, you like that comedian who always puts curvy women in his videos, don't you? Auntie Jumai, you laugh at his jokes. I want to look like those women. I also want to be idolized. I deserve to be, and I'm going to ensure I get that, as well as the other good things that will happen to me the moment I become perfect. Big Mommy, I know my daddy is dead. I was there, and I'm still here. I can't bring him back, but I can make myself happier. You looked around the room. I have some questions. I'm sure I won't get the answers. I know how we roll in this family. We just sweep issues under the rug, but I will ask anyway, you declared. If everyone can answer the questions I ask, then I won't do the surgery. The hush in the room let you know that you had the upper hand. You faced your mother first. Mommy, why did Ladun leave and not come home for 5 years? You shifted your focus to Auntie Jumai next. Auntie Jumai, why has your husband not come to get you? Who are you always going to see in town? You moved your gaze to Big Mummy, who was suddenly perched on the edge of her seat. Big Mummy, where is your first husband and why do you bleach your skin? Silence. Temi's mother then gives in. And she says that if Temi wants to have the surgery, she has her support. Just because she doesn't want to have to explain herself. Or maybe she just felt that, maybe so many choices had been taken away from her in her own life. And who was she to refuse Temi this wish of hers? I don't know. What do you think? So why, after Temi asking those questions, does her mother relent? Is it just because she doesn't want her to think too much about what happened? That she doesn't want to have to explain herself to a second daughter? Or that something about it just really makes her respect Temi's sense of independence? Or I don't know. So as Temi goes to her room, she thinks about all the people whose comments over the years hurt her. Those people were not wrong. You were without Bumbum, and they were right to state their expectations. Once that expectation was met, perhaps people would finally see you. A small voice asked, what will society expect you to fix next? Your left breast, which is slightly bigger than the right? Or your loud voice? Or would you fix the accidental that occasionally slipped out when you were not measuring your words? That was part of being Yoruba. You were certain that there was also a scientific explanation for the loudness of Yoruba people. Would the Bumbum make everyone finally love you? And this is where the book ends. And I think that's the question, right? Is that will having the Bumbum finally make everyone love her, and will it make her love herself? If not, what else will have to change, and where does it end? So this is a very intense book, like as you can see, and it deals with a lot of heavy issues. And this is only like the main character stories. So there's still Auntie Jumai's and Big Mummy stories as well that also deals with societal issues there. But Kuku does this really well with a bit of humor. And I actually wanted to share the author's note with you, right? So I read the author's note at the end, and it goes like this. My dear friends, the truth is, for a long time, my only companions were the books I read, including the Bible. Now, as a writer, I have you, my community of readers, as friends, because whether we meet or not, you have been there for me. I only hope my books are there for you on the days when you feel alone, broken, and just not ready to face the world. Thank you for all your messages, videos, emails, texts, and notes. I wrote this book for many personal reasons, but the most important reason is the obvious pressure on the young people of today whose tomorrow, I fear, is filled with too many expectations. For young women to be perfect, sexy, and have clear skin, and for young men to be rich, spend recklessly, and have beards. It has gotten to a point where every time I step out, there is a familiar face with a new body or slightly altered facial features. Everyone is starting to look alike. When did perfection become the goal? My dear young women, please understand, I am not against plastic surgery, but your bodies need time to develop. Give them time. After that, if you still don't love the growth, do what will make you happy. Fix them, exercise them, whatever, but please do it for yourself. To all the girls who have gone under the knife to seek approval from others, I am sorry, you are enough. To the girls who went under the knife for themselves, you are bad bitches and I salute you. I am sending you all my love through my words every time you pick up one of my books. Love and light, Damilare. And this is the point of art, isn't it? It's a reflection on our society, and it brings to our attention issues that maybe we didn't even know were there. And then also to spark a conversation that might have otherwise been difficult to initiate. And in an interview, the author said that one of her readers cried and said that she also has toxic family members as were depicted in the book. And I think that, like, as an artist, that's what you want, right? Is for people to be able to see themselves in your work and to be able to connect with it in such a personal way. So good for you, Miss Damilare. Like, really, it's great. I rated this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. As you can see, there's a lot of trauma. So please beware of triggers. And given the sexual harassment in this book, I think like maybe older kids like 17 or 18 should read it. Maybe younger, it might be a bit too traumatic. I don't know if I'm being conservative. It's like up to you. In this horrible world that we live in, I know that girls are aware of sexual harassment and assault at a very young age, because honestly we have to be. And so I suppose it's up to you to decide if your daughters and nieces will be able to handle the content at their age. So if you can pick up a copy, I highly recommend that you do. And drop me an email at booksandmortar@gmail.com, or leave me a comment to let me know what you think, because I'd really love to hear it. I think it's an issue that affects everybody in one way or another, whether mildly or severely. And I think it's a very important book for people to read. So I actually read the ebook version, and in one of the interviews, the author said that she feels that it's a book that every woman should read. And I agreed with her, so I bought the physical copy. Because I agree. I think that it is a book that everybody should read, because it's not something that only affects Nigerian women. It affects, I think, every woman, and I think in a lot of cases nowadays, men as well, in different ways. So yes, I think that it is an important book. I think it's an important message to get out there, and something that we should try and, get as wide a readership as possible for. So that's all from me for this episode. This is Books and Mortar with me, your host, Rizia, where we talk about the books that build us. Until next time, bye.